Welcome to our first episode. I'm here today with Cairo Nevitt. He's a trans athlete, model, actor, has so many different talents. So we're just going to talk about how to shape your reality and how to build more self-awareness and find your self-expression through the physical work and through fitness. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment and turn on the notification button. I'm Julian Solai and this is The Weight of the World. So tell us a little bit about your first competitive season as a male fitness model. How was that?
So my first season competing as a male fitness model was truthfully a dream come true. So I've been around a lot of people, a lot of competitors for the last 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched people's journeys come up and I don't know why, but just coincidence. I've always been around people who also go out and they're champions and they happen to win. So I've seen the extra mile that goes into these things. So to be on the other side, because obviously as a trans athlete, I've had to pause my fitness journey in different stages. So when I had my top surgery, recovery time for that is 3 months. So I was out of the gym for a little bit longer and even lifting and stuff. It was a slow.
That was actually one of the questions I had is, were you into fitness before transitioning, or is this something that just, grew for you afterwards?
Yeah, so I think I truly found my fitness journey once I started transitioning. I've always been active. Obviously, in my background, I'm a performer, so I'm used to moving my body. And I did actually like sports when I was in primary and secondary school. But then once I was 18 and above, I chose acting, and every hour of the day would be another discipline of the craft. So it would be whatever add-ons you could do. So I stopped doing sports because I did acting. But obviously I was fit, but it wasn't in the gym. But when I started, basically I had a knee injury ages ago from filming Run Up and Down Mountains.
What is it?
Mountain terrain. And it was sort of delayed. But basically at one point I literally couldn't walk. I was bedbound for a month and waiting for physio. So really my fitness journey started from an injury. Also during that time, that's when I realised that I'm also transgender. So it was a really big life quake, as I call it.
Okay.
A lot was going on. And from that, it was the first time at that point in my adult life that I stood still, because I'm usually a workaholic. And again, having that space was for me, it was life-changing, because then I could understand who I truly am. And even though it was a bit scary in the beginning, that's how I started doing that journey. And then once I recovered from the physio, I then wanted to keep becoming stronger, so I just went to got a regular gym membership, and at that point I never had a personal trainer, and I honestly didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was showing up, but that's all I could say about that. I didn't get any results, but it made me start to develop my interest in training. And then sort of fast forward a year, I was working on a documentary with Channel 4. So that was called The Making of Me. It was a 2-year project. It was really great to be a part of. And through that, that's when I had my first personal trainer for the first time.
Okay.
He was a former bodybuilding champion as well. And having that relationship was really paramount. And I learned more from having a personal trainer than even when I went and got my level 3 PT qualification. I learned more from actually having 6 months having a personal trainer, which I found was crazy.
What is it that you feel, that couple of things that you learned that really made the difference for you in fitness?
I think when you're working with people that are really passionate, it's not just a book, or it's not just random people on YouTube. It's you're going to have that personal experience, so that person can see how does your body work, what are the things that you need to work on. That level of accountability, being specific, knowing how you work and how to push you to your limits and what are your limits, and the challenge. I like the sense of the challenge, because it would always sort of change, and seeing the progress of how far you really can come or how strong you really are. And even during that time, truthfully, I was about to do a UK tour. I was working still in other jobs, and then at that point, I was coming out of a 3-year relationship where it was just on the rocks, and having fitness was something that really anchored me in a point where everything was so unpredictable in my life. So there was loads of layers to that, really.
Wow. So it helped you staying a bit more centered and having something to hang on to when
Yeah,
everything
like
was
when
a bit of a
everything else
mess.
was like, I was like traveling up and down. So like geographically, I didn't have like a base for like a long time.
Okay.
And then emotionally, like having that relationship being like on the rocks and it didn't work out, like having that it's something that anchors me. It's like, it doesn't matter what else is going on outside. It's like when I'm in the gym,
Yeah.
I'm in like my sacred space and I'm going to
Yeah.
train. And it kind of, yeah, like for me, it's not just the physical strength. Obviously, I love, I love getting gains and everything.
Yeah.
It's nice, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's nice to see
Yeah.
how your body
Yeah.
can physically change.
Yeah.
But for me, genuinely, I mean, it's more profound. It's more like that inner strength, and that's why I do it all year round. It's not just for a competition. It's not just for I don't know, one set event. It's genuinely part of my life and my personal discipline.
So going back to the competitive year, so you were saying that.
So I had to. So it's some competing was
Yeah.
something that I wanted to do for years, but obviously I had to have about 3 months out for top surgery,
Yeah.
and then it was like being a beginner for a while, and I just didn't know if it was possible or not because obviously there aren't. I know there are a few trans athletes in America who I speak to, and it's like I've seen them go first and do it, and
Yeah.
I'm not the only person in the UK as a trans man who's competing, but we're one of like I could count on one hand.
Yeah.
And it's just been, I didn't know if it was possible or not. I didn't know if I was going to be accepted, if I was going to be allowed to compete. And even just on my own, from a personal point of view, I didn't know if I would get into shape or if I could balance out my body. And it just was, it's just a really big deal. Like I remember going to my first ever posing seminar, which was last year. And I don't really suffer from anxiety really much anymore. But it was for me, like for being trans and just being in your underwear in front of a group of strangers that I don't know was like
Wow.
the school assembly of like being naked.
Yeah.
And it sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I knew that it was a safe space. I'd spoken to these guys before. Obviously, I didn't tell them I was trans really, but I just was nervous about just the whole experience. So even going back a year, even though I did that, I'm not like I am now. Like I'm a whole different upgrade, and the level of confidence, the physique, like all of it is just, and it's just rocketed to another level this year.
Yeah, I think as a coach, just watching you grow in the last year, it's been just incredible. And like I think the competitive world sometimes it's the total opposite of that. So we almost find the confidence into getting recognition from somebody else as opposed to ourselves. And this is why, we train to look a certain way so that we can fit the category. You can probably confirm this, but stepping on stage with a lineup of other guys and just feeling like, I'm actually...
I think it suddenly, I think when we did our Miami Pro posing comp, obviously like I hadn't met, obviously we've got the guys in our team, but apart from that, I've never met any of the other competitors. And I think it was on that day, seeing everybody else and being in the lineup, and actually, we're still maybe like a month or two out, but I just knew that I deserve to be here, and I'm absolutely ready to compete this year, even though we've all got work to do. And I didn't know what the results were going to be. I didn't know if I was going to win or not, but I just knew that like I didn't have there was no shadow of a doubt. I knew that I deserved to be here, and I was gonna take up that space, and I was gonna flex and get my elbows, take up as much room as I could. But where before, like honestly, I just would have been, so many people compare to other people, themselves to other people, and I just would have been like, oh, I'm not, as a trans man, maybe competing against a cis guy in such a like, in an environment where, you got to think, even for me personally, like I'm different to even other trans men. Like as before I transitioned, I've always been like, I was a petite woman, like to put it into perspective for people. Like I was, before I transitioned, I was like, who, I don't know, if I'd go to a casting against other women would hate me because I'd be small and slim, and
Wow.
I hated it. But that's really my body type, and that was my starting point. I never have been, I never really had size. I've always been a smaller person. That's just my frame. So for me, it's like behind closed doors, like I knew I was never going to be the biggest person on stage or in any room, but it's not about that. It's more like, what are you bringing to the table? So I stopped
yeah.
competing months before. Like
Yeah.
it was just with myself. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
how much can you, what level can you take your body to? Like, you know, its journey, like how much can you progress every week? How can you own your craft? Because I do see it like a craft the same way.
Absolutely.
As I've got that discipline as an actor, I apply it the same when I train or when I'm doing posing, and it's all ritualistic, and it's, you know, you reflect, you analyze, you break things down, what can be improved. So I really had that relationship, and really the wins, it's the private victories. Like it's when I'm crying on the treadmill and not because it's a punishment or anything, but even like out of like gratitude. Like I found that really weird in this prep. Like I felt like it was shedding layers and skin and things that maybe needed to heal that I didn't really find in any other environment. That part of the prep and gearing up towards something like a competition, it was actually like a bit spiritual. That's how I saw it. So and then even like a lot of people have asked me since competing, like, oh, but what was it really like? As if there's like, I don't know, some gossip or something to say, but like, was everyone really accepting? Was everyone really welcoming to you? And the truth is, yeah, actually, like in these federations, in the competitions that I was in, yeah, actually backstage, all the athletes were totally like, you know, we're friends, and no one batted an eyelid. Everyone was really accepting and very welcoming. And I think there's so many people that stereotype bodybuilders or people that are muscly and just try and say it's like toxic masculinity. When for me, toxic masculinity is not a body type. Like, let's be clear, like it's a behavior, it's how you treat people.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so many people, especially online, they get it really twisted and try to make it out like there's one where actually like these group of bodybuilders, they've been the most welcoming men that I've actually probably worked with in a really long time. So just to throw out like the stereotype out there, it was very, it was a great environment. And I think we could all appreciate the journey that we've been on. No one could stand on stage and you've not been through a journey of some sort, you know.
Of course.
So there was like that unity. And if anyone forgot anything, it's like, you know, you might have forgot, I don't know, some Rice Krispie squares, or you might have like left some water somewhere. Like people would have each other's back. And I come from a competitive world in like the performing arts world, where I've had a few shoots that people have been kind and nice, but actually if you forget something, it's like, oh, well, that's too bad. You know, it's a bit more, and you wouldn't think of those parallels, but in my experiences, it's funny what people, you know, these guys that look big or whatever, it just, even how the women get treated as well, it's just like, people judge people who are into fitness, and really you only know one side of our story. Yeah.
And I think that is a massive step forward for the fitness industry, that's for sure. And I also think, you know, as a bodybuilder, I don't necessarily identify as a bodybuilder, but as a bodybuilder, you're looking for the transformation, you're looking for growth. And I think anyone who meets you and speaks to you, like they realize it straight away, this guy knows something about transforming themselves, about growth, about, you know, self-development.
Even this time last year, one of my New Year's resolution was I was going to trade Netflix for Audible, because I wanted to, and I did. Obviously, eventually I had some castings that I had to be up to date with a few series. I borrowed my sister's login. But in general, like I like how many hours I've invested into listening to these things. It's like, it's great. Like sometimes I might be listening to this stuff for like 4 hours of a day. You know, and those things, I think like your mindset is everything personally. So it is about conditioning your body, it's conditioning your mind. And then also like I just found like, even when I wasn't focusing on my other career stuff as much, because I really was like, right, I'm a competitor, that's my thing. Success came when I wasn't genuinely looking for it, because because you're attracting it by how you're conducting yourself, by keep showing up, and people can see how hard you're working.
100%.
So that was, even though I've always kind of known that, it was really eye-opening. I couldn't believe the amount, the volume of things that would come my way.
100%.
That was something I learned this year. Was
surprising. You just project a different energy when you're working on your goals, when you know where you're going. I think a lot of people, especially nowadays, they're quite lost. You know, so to watch someone, to see someone just so determined on achieving their own goals is just so refreshing as well, and so attractive, you know, as well. Yeah, what you said about, you know, listening to self-development speeches and podcasts and stuff like that is so true, because this, you know, these are things that have an accumulative effect. So it's not like you listen to it once. You might have a breakthrough as you're listening to someone talking to you about a specific thing, but realistically, it's more about, you know, creating a habit in terms of thinking a certain way. And the best way to do that is just to consume this kind of content on a regular basis. So I think what you said in terms of like trading Netflix, swapping Netflix for, you know, self-development podcast might sound a little bit extreme, but it's going to be extremely effective in terms of, you know, helping you achieve a different level of, you know, mindset and thinking.
Like I remember in the pandemic, I had just had top surgery about 3 months before the new year, like 2020. Sorry to trickle people, but that time. And so I was like a baby. I literally just was a PT in a gym for like 3 months before the gyms closed. And I was still working in retail at that point. I was a team leader working part-time. So I was literally doing both jobs. And then all of a sudden, like, obviously the world closed, and then even my retail job just disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how I'm going to get my rent money next month. I don't, and obviously, like, I freaked out, probably cried and went through a million emotions. But then I was like, okay, I just need to change the way I think about this situation. So I remember, like, I literally just went on TED Talks, and I was like, right, what to do when you get fired, or what do you do? How do you turn your business around? And I just spent a couple of days like that, because I had nothing else to lose at that point. I was like, well, you already lost your jobs in plural, and you still got rent to pay. And then eventually I was like, right, I'm gonna take my coaching online. I'm gonna do like Zoom. I'm gonna do some free workouts on Instagram, and I'm gonna run a little boot camp. And from there, that's kind of how I got one of the coaching jobs I have now, because I'm the head coach of a charity called Not a Phase. And, you know, we've teamed up with like Nike in the last year. Like there's been really exciting opportunities from that. And, you know, really they found me because of them seeing me on Instagram, just doing this little boot camp. So I think there's every time, no matter what happens to you, you've always got at least 2 options. There's actually more than 2. But there's it really is how you frame what is occurring, and in every situation there's good and bad. So it's just trying to find what the lesson is, what you can learn, or actually what can be better. And actually I'm so grateful really for the pandemic that it got me out of that job that I really hated so much faster, because I didn't have a chance to be like, I'll wait till I'm ready. Like the floor was gone. It's like you sink or swim, that's it now. And it's even that gave me a lot more confidence. And I know like this time last year, before coming on board on your coaching team, I was like, I'm not sure, like I need a change, I know. And the thing is, I think with coaches, like you build a good relationship, and I just knew that it was my time to swap. I think so many people just swap for the sake of it. It's like, that's a whole different conversation. It's like, you need to work harder actually. But
it's not your coach, it's
but
you.
I think at different points we attract different people for different things. And I just really had a strong feeling that I really wanted to work with you. I've seen your journey from 3 years before that year, and how much that you've grown. And one of the big things that I really like about you as a person is that you're always evolving. Like you never get complacent. You actually spend a lot of time in developing yourself and your business, and all these things. I think is really, you know, obvious on the outside that you're putting in that inner work, and it's like the private victories that people don't see, but actually you've been there and you've been doing all these different things, and that's what improves like the quality of your services, and that's how you can show up and be a better person or a better coach. And I think that's also something to just mention.
I appreciate that, of course. And I remember how excited I got when you jumped on board, because I knew this was going to be a big thing. I think we were telling each other about like twice a week how, you know, this was going to be a big mission, that it would have inspired a lot of people. And we know that is the case today. And it probably went even better than we could have imagined. We actually managed to win, you know, 2 shows. So that's pretty incredible. But one thing that I'm curious about is that obviously you've been through such a huge transformation that it was kind of rooted with your sexual identity, but at the same time it just expanded on so many aspects of your life. So obviously I know that you have a strong relationship with your mom, but has your support system changed Like, did you feel like as you were not necessarily transitioning, but as you were getting more into fitness perhaps, and more, centered towards certain goals, that you had to kind of let some people go, or you found like there's new people came into your life to kind of support you with this new mission?
I think in terms of like going into my fitness journey and thinking about support, I think over the years, I find it really, I don't know what the word is, I'm going to say interesting, how there are people that I expect to be in my corner and I think would cheer the loudest. But actually, when they get a hint that you're being a bit more successful, you're being a little bit more focused, they aren't really cheering in your corner anymore. And that's something I found when I did acting. Whenever I might be doing a bigger show, certain people will just fade out and kind of more intense, or the more that I was getting better pictures in the gym, on some levels I did notice a lot of people fading out, or even chatting rubbish, slandering my good name.
Wow.
Because of jealousy. And I think that's,
they hate us because they ain't us.
Too many hate. Don't be a hater. That's why I call myself the unofficial hype man. Because I'm about cheering other people's success, celebrate other people's success. It doesn't take it away from you.
No.
If it's hitting a nerve, then reflect. What is that about?
Yeah.
Do the work.
Absolutely.
Do you need to work harder? Do you need to change career? Do you need to say no to something and yes to others?
Or just build more awareness. Like if you hate on someone, it's your problem, not their problem.
Can't project that. I don't want to give them airtime, but I did experience a lot more, on some levels, more hate, and even like online and stuff. But what it did do was the people that were really happy for me, and so many more people followed my fitness journey and my prep into this competition. Like, I was quite, documenting it every day, like with my stories and stuff. People were like continuously like involved and interested and messaging me, and even afterwards they just completely emotionally invested, and people that I didn't even think cared or didn't think noticed, when I'm at the gym and it's like 5 a.m. or when I'm back again and all these different things, like they noticed everything more than I expected them to. And even like, your team has grown a lot this year, and I feel like you've actually been very active in building a community, and you've done different events this year, and from that, I've connected with a lot more other athletes and people in the gym, and it's just really nice because whether I'm the person that they might bump into and I can have a laugh with them, and that might cheer them up, or actually I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and they're like, I know I can't let them see me like this, I need to show, I need to raise the bar, set the standard, or cheer them on. And it's nice that it's just added another layer, so it's not just like, all right, I'm just in the gym. It's become more like, like a little family or a little unit of people, and you are also involved in their journeys, which again, like, everyone needs a little pick-me-up at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's connected me with the people that matter more, and the ones that, if you're not going to be happy in my success, then I would rather just have a smaller circle, truthfully. I mean, obviously what I do first is for myself, truthfully, like it's my own journey. But if in me being authentic to who I am in any way, shape or form is going to inspire somebody, that really means the world, especially in a world where people are so quick to judge and so like, all that stuff.
And I think, what we do sometimes, we get caught up in the idea that it's very individual. We're working on ourselves, we're centered on our goals, but the reality is that it helps the community. Personally, I had to experience transitioning onto being a leader, less of someone that works on themselves and more someone that works for the community. And I think, there's truth in that. Even someone like Chris Bumstead is inspiring millions of people by just working on themselves. So what you do for yourself, it also reflects onto and it can inspire and help a lot of other people, and that's obviously the case for you. And one of the things, probably the thing that I admire the most about you, is that you're one of the very few people I know that gives themselves the complete freedom to be themselves and who they want to be unapologetically. And even I have to learn from that. I have a lot to learn from that. So what I wanted to ask you is, when you don't necessarily feel, at the top, you don't feel like yourself, what do you do to pick yourself back up?
What do I do? It depends.
You talked about looking at things from a different perspective later on. Like,
I think I'm really honest with myself. I think that's something that helps me. So
Yeah.
I'm quite, because I give myself that space, especially in the last sort of 2 years, I actually allow room for reflection. I know when I'm kind of going a bit off track, like I'm quite intuitive as a person, and because I listen to that, I don't ignore those kind of inner feelings.
Yeah.
But I think what I do is I reflect. So before I blame other people, like like me as the teenage me, oh my God, I'd have every excuse ready for you. I could write a book on excuses. I think my sister's developed that now. But like I really
I love that.
I could have just and it'd be like, it's the bus driver, it's my teacher, it's this. And it's like, do you know what? Life happens to everybody. Shit actually happens to everybody. And every time you blame somebody else, you're keeping yourself down. You're relinquishing your own power. So for me,
you're limiting your own growth.
You're limiting yourself. So now that I know that, like, if things aren't going good, I'll be like, okay, I might need a day or two. Sometimes it's a week. But I'll ponder on what is the root cause of my unhappiness, or why am I, underperforming, or why isn't this fulfilling me? It depends what it is. And then, like I said, I'll be really brutally honest about that. And that, I think being honest is probably the harder part with yourself. And then after that, I don't just, even though I can be away with the fairies sometimes, or I can, like my research, I can be theoretical, but something about me is that you just got to do it. And the quicker you can just do whatever it is that you know that you're supposed to do, the better. So I try not to hesitate. I just think once I make a decision, I usually just commit. And then I reflect. If something isn't working, then again, I'll make another decision.
Absolutely.
And it will change.
Absolutely.
So it's having that good self-awareness, brutal honesty. And then also there's an element, as the older I get, I think, like I say, like, I'm the king of transformations. I've transformed so many aspects of my life. Like I've been like a school dropout and then getting like top grades in my class. I've come from absolutely nothing, poverty, and then feeling like I've lived this privileged life, and in certain rooms that I should, who are you to be here? Well, I am here. I think those moments give me a confidence, and I think I've sometimes been in really like impossible situations and somehow come out of the other side because I just refuse to give up. And I just think there's something, I think I trust myself, I think I've got a strong trust that if things aren't going good, I know that I can make them better. So I think that helps me. And then once you have that confidence, like, do you know what? It doesn't matter what you try to, I don't care what you think of me. I literally don't care anymore, where I used to be so much more self-conscious, and especially when you work in front of a camera and people, even like if you do a show, people literally critique you. If you put yourself out there on Instagram, there's so many trolls out there, they're going to critique you. Being a competitor, like there's all these things that more than most people, what it's like to be under the microscope. So I think it's normal to have that self-criticalness and consciousness. But I think once you realize that some people are never going to be happy, doesn't matter what you do. So as long as the decisions that you do are making you fulfilled, then I just don't give a damn anymore. It's really about, am I happy? Am I doing the right thing? Is this affecting anyone in a good or bad way? No. So I've got to live with myself at the end of the day. You might have to interact with me for an hour, maybe it's 8-hour shift, but I got to live with me 24/7. So if I'm not happy, I can't keep squishing who I am anymore. I can't keep hiding in any way, shape or form. So, and even me, like, truthfully, it's some of the work that I do now, obviously, like, I'm a trans man, but really I'm straight. I'm a straight guy. And like, I can wear a really ridiculously out there, super camp, super femme outfit, for example. And that doesn't, I know that doesn't change who I am. It doesn't define me as a man or a person or even my sexuality. And I think once you go to those levels, like, I just think you just become untouchable. It's like nobody can surprise me anymore. And that's, I think that's why I'm just unapologetic now, you know? Because I know who I am now. I've gone on so many journeys of like, who am I?
Of course.
Like before I came out, like, you know, I have lived experience as a woman. Obviously that wasn't who I am, but I have that world experience of being treated like that. And then early days, like when I was like thinking, oh, you know, I explore my sexuality, not exploring, but just discovering my sexuality, and be like, hey, I know that I like women, but at that point I still identified, or, you know, was perceived as a woman. So then becoming under that label as a lesbian, not that that's ever how I truly felt fit, but
Yeah.
it's still like I've gone around all these different places to get to where I am now. So now I'm like I know who I am.
Yeah.
And that's a really empowering thing.
Yeah. And you worked really like fucking hard.
Yeah, like
to find out who you are.
You know, I've done my soul searching plenty. Like there's been a lot of soul searching. But I know now, and it just gives you that freedom, because when I started out being an actor and I was like early 20s, you know, I literally, you know, I still suffer from perfectionism sometimes, but
we all do.
But I'm looser about it. Where before it was like I was always performing 24/7, and I would be so exhausted, and I wasn't ever really happy. It was always like, oh, this great opportunity happened, but it was like bittersweet. It was never my whole self. Where I think once I decided to transition, I was like, really, this is a chance to me. If I'm going to make this commitment and maybe potentially lose all these other things, obviously things worked out in the end, but I didn't know that, then actually I'm committing to living my whole life to the best of my potential. So really it was quite like I've almost got like a second life, you know? And from that, it's like I promised myself that whatever I do is going to be wholeheartedly, and who I'm going to be is myself truly. And I think that's helped people warm to me, and then that way they can learn more about just different people, about people that are trans, because we get a lot of crap in the media, and a lot of it's based upon fear, because no one's ever spoken to another trans person, you know, when they're being that judgmental. Usually it's not, in general, it's not usually because they're so transphobic. It's just because there's a lack of knowing, or a lack of connection, and we're all more alike than different anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. In terms of this whole journey to, you know, finding yourself and finding your identity, how do you feel fitness helped you?
I think fitness gave me another layer to explore. So in theory, if you're committed enough, there will always be progress. You might go backwards even sometimes, but there's always there's literally a journey. And in that journey, it's like over the years, I just went from being like not having a clue what I was doing to then like exploring that a bit more. So I feel like I found myself through different stages of my fitness journey.
Okay.
And the fact that obviously I'm also a coach as well. So
yeah,
it's changed part of my career path. It's allowed me to like be more of a leader and show up for other people in many different situations, in and outside the gym. And it's given me that, you know, I'm someone, I've always believed in inner strength. And even sometimes, you know, like I've had illnesses and vitamin deficiencies and a lot, and I've also been physically very weak at points. So for me, it's kind of helped me learn how to stay centered, and with my mental well-being as well. Like, I think sometimes I have such an unpredictable life, and I've also had so many crazy shit like in my whole life, truthfully. Like I've been through so many things that it's like, I mean, sometimes I'm like, God, it's a miracle I'm still standing like through some of the crap I've been through. But it's more.
Do you want to share any of them?
I don't know. Like, I think definitely as a teenager, I definitely experienced like really bad depression, and there were so many layers to that. Like some of it was like I didn't have a good relationship with my father, and that was definitely at that point when you're a teenager, that was definitely underneath some of those things. You know, moving country and then suddenly like becoming a foreigner, and they're really racist, and like I just didn't know who I was back then, so I was very lost. And obviously I didn't even know that I was trans then, but there was just so many, there was like this lingering depression, and I couldn't even, there's so many different reasons I couldn't pinpoint it. And I definitely feel like I spent 2 like solid years being permanently depressed, like from 14 to 16, and I just would literally sleep the days away, and I didn't think that I had any sense of future. And even like, because I was failing in school, like my teacher was like, yeah, you're not going to be anything, you're going to be a road sweeper, you're going to, you know, or go to jail, or you're just going to be broke. Like,
that's great teaching.
I'm like, great, yo, that's it, kill my dreams, kill my spirit, you deserve a promotion, miss. But
she probably got it.
They probably did. And I'm like, how you like me now? You know, and I think I just made it my mission to prove people wrong. Like, you know, it's who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? Like, how dare you tell me who I can and cannot be? Like, everyone has potential. Even if you've like messed up your life, I believe everyone can turn it around at any point. And I can either go back down this road and just be really depressed and miserable, or I can decide what do I want, and then make that decision, and then commit. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to compete this year. Like that's what I've been wanting to do for a couple of years. It maybe wasn't the right time, but it is the right time now. So I'm going to change. I'm going to change coach. I'm going to change gym. I'm going to put myself where I need to be to make that happen. So I think if anything, fitness has just made me. For me, it's like it's a bit of therapy. It's spiritual.
I remember we were talking about this when Shay passed, right? We were talking about, channeling bad energy. Do you feel like the hatred that you get from other people, or people telling you can't do something, like it happened with that teacher of yours?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that kind of, in a way, motivates you more? Like, can you use it as fuel? If you do, then how do you channel it into something positive and constructive?
I don't know if it's the Scorpio in me, or if it's like, I like that song, like anything you can do, I can do better. No, you can't. Yes, I can, and I'll show you. Kind of vibe. I think truthfully in my life, I've had so much resistance that it's built a resilience in me.
Yeah.
That it's like, I will show you. I will die in the process of proving you. Like I will show you, because that's how committed. If I'm going to commit, it's wholeheartedly. That's the level. Losing one of your own, like losing Shay at the beginning of the year. Grief is such a hard thing to deal with, and especially when you're dealing with somebody that's younger. Like it's so many things to get your head around, and especially because of the type of work that I do. I'm always like the leader. And I feel like I can save everybody, and the world isn't like that. Like it's not my fault. And I've definitely felt like, well, there's anything I could do, like losing somebody to suicide. But the truth is, it's like some things happen, and there isn't anything more that I could have personally done. But it's, living with grief. It's like, look at, what's his name? Ashley Kane. Like, I definitely relate to some of his like fitness journeys. Really, if you look at it, he's going through grief, and he's channeling that in a way. And I definitely felt like when I lost Shay, like I was already training, so I was really grateful to have that fundamental discipline there, because I could have just completely gone off the hooks. But I was angry at point, and even now sometimes I'm angry, but there's things to be angry about. But rather than going out and getting drunk in a bar and picking a fight with somebody, it's like, actually no, I'm going to train hard, and I'm going to pump some iron, and can I get a personal best? Sometimes it's like I need a release of this energy.
I mean, this really makes me think, because obviously we know that like self-destruction is a coping mechanism. When the pain hits you, right, you can react in so many different ways. You can use that pain and transform it and use it for something constructive, or it can kind of hit you and you can take a different route and just self-sabotage yourself. One thing that you made me realize today, one thing that I'm definitely going to take away, is that self-awareness is developing self-awareness is the best thing that you can do for yourself, because it's really what's going to make a difference in terms of giving you more of a choice whenever you find yourself in a situation where you're suffering a lot or you're going through a lot of pain. If you're not self-aware, if you're not able to be honest with yourself and address, how you're really feeling, then it's going to be so much harder to find a constructive way to cope with that pain. And I think that's probably the biggest difference, between you and someone that would have chosen, to be very self-destructive, is the fact that you were actually very self-aware. And you were like, how do I feel right now? Let me check in with myself, and how can I use what I feel to make him proud, to do something that is constructive and is actually going to help me feel better and not feel worse.
And then whenever I come away from a training day, especially like I think I found out the news, and I think like within the next 48 hours I was back in the gym, and it wasn't even like I'm just being oblivious, I'm pretending this hasn't happened. It's like actually whether we cry in the gym. Obviously at that point I hadn't cried on the treadmill out of gratitude yet in prep. So I was like, I don't embarrass myself in the gym, but I was like, we need to be there, because like I said, like it's like my sacred space, and whether you do it and you just do one set and you walk out, but you just got to be there, because if you leave a big gap, what are you going to do with this free time? You're probably going to turn to other vices, which is not healthy. Like, are you going to drink? Or are you just going to, I don't know, just go into like a cave and, I don't know, just be, off the radar. So I just decided that's how I was going to deal with it. And even now it's like, if I look at my teenage self, I was very dark and depressive. I have that self-destruction button in me. I have that like as light as I am, I can like everyone else, I can be just as dark. It's been, yeah, I think just channeling its energy. Like I think we had a conversation about energy before, and it's just like it can be constructive or it can be destructive, and I'm just like, right, I'm just going to channel this into my workouts or into my quest and make it part of my mission, which is really powerful. Like that gives you a purpose and a sense that you can't just get if you just want a six pack. You just, it doesn't work like that.
I'm
joking. No, this is not emotion. This is just the cold.
Do you need water?
I might need some. I'm like, oh God. It's just so emotional. So when you inhale.
I've got a final question for you. If you were to meet your younger self.
Like, okay, now I've got actual tears already.
No. If you were to meet your younger self, what would you tell him?
I think if I was going to go back to this voice, it's not me pretending. I think
this is acting skills.
This is
next level.
This is the masterclass, y'all. Where's the Oscar? No, I think if I was to go back and really be my younger self in my darkest moments, where honestly, like being honest with people, I did have suicidal thoughts, and I think that's another level why this really hit home, because there was a lot of Shay that was reminding me of my younger self, and they didn't get to come to the other side and see, like, doesn't matter what other people that are being really horrible to you are saying.
Yeah,
there's a power inside of you that nobody can touch, is unmatchable. So it's just holding on that little bit longer and just finding a way. Like where there's a will, there's a way. Sorry, you're getting this in the. Let me take a second.
Yeah, no
getting some drama here, yo. Yeah, I'll take. But I think I just say to people, or not to people, I would say to myself that, like, you are so much stronger. That's such a cliche, but you're stronger than you know. And more than strength, it's like you are so resilient. Like when you want to do something, you'll move heaven and earth to do that. And knowing that you can do that, I think has been really life-changing, because so many people, just get bullied. Even my own self-talk was terrible. And I think my confidence was just on the floor. And it's like, once you tune those voices out and start listening to your real self and doing these things in action, like you want to show yourself, it's like, how are you respecting yourself by the decisions that you make, So I think, that's what I would say, really.
Okay.
With a croaky voice. My deep, dark self.
It works. It works.
This is going to capture you. But it's the truth. It's the truth,
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. If you're watching this on YouTube, just make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next episode.